Devaluation doesn't start with insults, it starts with silence. You don't realize it's happening at first. The thank yous fade, the warmth disappears, and before you realize it, you're working twice as hard just to feel half as seen. You respond automatically, not because you understand what's happening, but because it feels like something must be wrong with you. So you try harder, give more, shrink yourself, but no matter what you do, the approval that once felt effortless is now withheld. Sometimes the abuser does this so you chase harder. Other times it's to punish you for falling under their control. And other times it's because they're trying to justify the abuse to themselves. This is devaluation, when the very traits they once praised in you become the very reasons they begin tearing you down. For men, this cuts especially deep. Many of us are taught from a very young age that our worth lies in what we do, not who we are, and how useful we are, how much we provide, how much we endure. And when that usefulness is dismissed, mocked, or ignored, we don't just feel unloved, we feel worthless. Devaluation can show up in many forms, from withdrawing affection to withholding praise to twisting your strengths into flaws. And these various ways are what we'll explore in today's deep dive episode into the blueprint of family violence against men, one of the only resources that clearly maps, across the rooms of a house, the tactics of abuse towards men. In the blueprint, devaluation is the last tactic we cover in the master bedroom, the room that holds psychological manipulation. You can watch my other videos to explore the rest of the tactics in this room. Devaluation is a psychological manipulation tactic where your core worth is slowly eroded, not through direct insults, but through strategic withdrawal, omission, and reframing. It usually follows a period of idealization. At first, you're admired, praised, told you're rare, but then the admiration disappears. In devaluation, your kindness is reframed into naivety. Your steadiness becomes weaponized into rigidity. What once made you feel secure now makes you feel like a failure. And you start performing, not out of love, but desperation to get back to the praise you once received. So when praise is removed, we don't just feel unloved, we feel defective. And the instinct is to overfunction, provide more, be more useful, so that we can feel valued again. And that's how devaluation works. It attacks your sense of value, the part of you your identity is built on. And to regain that identity, you chase the approval your abuser once gave freely but now withholds. Let's take a look at the 10 different ways abusers devalue you in relationships. Let's start with the most common form of devaluation, the withdrawal of warmth and recognition. This isn't the absence of love, it's the withholding of it. This is when affection, gratitude, and emotional presence quietly vanish. You're doing the same things, but now there's no response. And because nothing obvious has changed, you blame yourself. You work harder. You look inwards for the problem and double your efforts to earn back the warmth that was once abundant. And that's the trap, because the withdrawal isn't about you falling short. It's about control and how deeply you're being conditioned to equate being needed with being worthy. Next is recasting your core traits, where the strength they once praised, like your kindness, reliability, logic, steadiness, and strength, are reframed as flaws that they now punish you for. It's not that the traits disappear, it's that the narrative around them shifts. What was once admirable becomes irritating. What once made you attractive now makes you weak, cold, rigid, or controlling. At first, the shift is subtle, a teasing comment, a joke at your expense. Then it sharpens. Your patience is now emotional distance. Your calmness is now indifference. Your self control is now repression. Even your sense of humor, once called witty or sharp, is now dry or negative. You haven't changed, but the lens through which you're viewed has. This tactic doesn't just target your behavior, it targets your identity. When someone recasts your core traits, they're not telling you what you did was wrong, they're telling you who you are is the problem. For men, this lands with particular weight. Many of us are raised to find pride in being steady, logical, dependable, the protector, the anchor, the one who doesn't fall apart. When those same qualities are reframed as failings, it cuts at the foundation of who we are. Next is selective praise replacement. This devaluation tactic is when admiration still exists, just never for you. This isn't about admiration in general. It's about strategic omission. Your qualities, efforts, or achievements are ignored or minimized, while similar traits in others are highlighted and celebrated. It doesn't matter that you work just as hard, show up just as fully, or even exceed the standards being praised. You're cast in shadow while others are pulled into the light. What makes this tactic so destabilizing is that it feels both invisible and deeply personal. There's no insult to defend against, no obvious slight to challenge, just a growing sense that you don't measure up. Not because you've failed, but because someone else has been cast as better. And within abusive dynamics, that casting is deliberate. It keeps you striving and competing, hoping that if you just do more, you'll finally earn your place back in the spotlight. Another way devaluation shows up is in performance threshold inflation, or in other words, the definition of bare minimum keeps rising. Here, the standard for being appreciated, acknowledged, or even seen keeps rising, just out of reach. What once earned you a thank you, a smile, or even just basic warmth now gets framed as the bare minimum. You're no longer praised for doing well, you're expected to do more without question, without recognition, and without rest. The change is often subtle. In the early days, small gestures were noticed, acts of care were met with gratitude. But over time, the baseline shifts. What was once exceptional becomes ordinary, and then it becomes insufficient. This kind of devaluation turns effort into obligation. You find yourself doing more, not to shine, but to avoid criticism. Your entire value becomes tethered to output, and that output is constantly being recalibrated. Another, more subtle and confusing way that you are devalued is through a repair attempt refusal. This is when every effort to reconnect after a rocky period is ignored, shunned, or used against you. Whether you offer an apology, try to reframe a misunderstanding, or reach out to reconnect, the response is cold, dismissive, or contemptuous. Over time, you're taught that no repair is possible, that nothing you say or do will ever be enough, and that emotional safety, once broken, stays broken because they want it that way. What makes this tactic so corrosive is its distortion of conflict resolution. Here, repair is denied by design. Your attempts to de escalate are ignored, your apologies are used against you, your outreach is reframed as proof that you're guilty, needy, or manipulative. The impact isn't just disconnection, it's erosion. You may begin to see your own empathy as weakness, something to suppress rather than express. In the end, it starts to reshape your sense of what love is. You stop expecting repair and you stop believing it's even possible. A rather nasty and covert devaluation technique is humble bragging the sacrifice. This is where your partner paints themselves as noble, patient, or selfless for staying in the relationship, subtly framing you as the burden they've chosen to bear. What makes this so insidious is its tone. It's often said with a sigh, a tired smile, or in the way that invites praise, not challenge. And if you call it out, you're accused of overreacting. If you stay silent, you absorb the shame. The message lands either way. You are difficult. They are generous for tolerating you. Over time, these remarks chip away at your sense of self. You start believing that your presence is a burden, that their sacrifice is the only reason you still have a relationship. And because it's not overtly cruel, it's harder to name, especially for men who have been taught to be grateful for love. Next is disappearing wins. This devaluation technique cuts deep. Your wins, personal or professional, are ignored. It's not overt mockery, it's absence. What makes this tactic insidious is it creates a vacuum where celebration should be. A subtle erasure of identity building moments, your career milestones, emotional growth, creative pursuits, they don't register. For many men, achievement is a primary way we express value. When that's stripped of meaning, not through failure but through invisibility, it chips away at our sense of worth. And in some cases, your wins are only actually acknowledged when they serve her. What she can gain, how it affects her standing, or what new expectations she can place on you now that you've leveled up. Another powerful devaluation technique that can be just as explosive to try to manage in the moment is the what about me hijack. This is when they reframe your positive moment, an achievement, compliment, or act of self expression, into an affront, an omission, or failure to recognize them. You mention something you're proud of, and they reply, "Well, I've done that too." You get complimented, and they later sulk or say, "You never say that kind of thing to me." This tactic teaches you that joy always comes with a price, and that pride in your achievements will hurt your partner. Another form of devaluation is dream suppression. This is when your goals, ambitions, or creative pursuits are subtly or overtly dismantled, not through honest concern, but through strategic discouragement, minimization, or mockery. It may begin as doubt disguised as realism. Be practical, that's not going to work. But it can escalate to ridicule. You doing that? Or emotional sabotage. You're so selfish, focusing on yourself while I'm drowning over here. What's dangerous isn't just the negativity, it's the emotional association that gets created. Dreaming becomes selfish, planning becomes arrogance, achievement becomes a threat. Eventually, you stop dreaming. You shrink your ideas before they're even born, not because they're unachievable, but because you've been trained to believe they're selfish, delusional, or embarrassing. And finally, the last way you are devalued is weaponized nostalgia. This is where your past self is idealized and held up as the better version of you, even though you've grown since then. At first, it may sound like longing. I miss how you used to be. But over time, it becomes an emotional weapon, reframing your development, boundaries, or emotional fatigue as signs you've declined. Men are taught to pride ourselves on consistency, reliability, and being the rock. So when a partner says you're not who you used to be, it sounds like failure. But here's the trap: the person they're mourning may never have existed. Or if he did, it may be because that person was naive or suppressed back then. Weaponized nostalgia doesn't long for your happiness, it longs for your compliance. Devaluation doesn't always scream. Instead, it shows up as an absence of praise, of warmth, of joy. And the result to you is the same. You start disappearing inside your life. But here's what you need to know: you are not here just to be useful. You are not loved because you perform. You deserve love that sees you, that values you, that doesn't make you prove your worth just to keep it. If this video spoke of your experience, please like and subscribe to Stand Again. Visit us at standagain.com.au to explore the full blueprint of family violence against men, where we map every tactic and show the path out, from survival to recovery to thriving. You're not broken, you're not the problem, and no matter how many times you've been knocked down, you can stand again.